Hello everybody, and every blessing to you, and I hope this video finds you well. Now, what I wanted to share today is a bit unusual, and at first, I thought it was just for me, and then I realized no, it was just very symptomatic of the season that so many people are passing through. And I wonder if it's the same thing with you, that you're wondering where the attacks and where the challenges are actually coming from, and suddenly we're not as sure as we were in that past season where the danger really is. And as I was just meditating that with the Lord, he suddenly spoke to me and he said, "And now you are going to see your enemy face to face." Well, I was really shocked and I wondered whether I really wanted to see my enemy face to face. It brought back memories of something that happened many years ago when I was quite a young prophet, quite a very, very young intercessor as well, when I accidentally rebuked what turned out to be a principality and ended up actually seeing the thing, and I thought, oh no, Lord, I don't want it to be like that again. But time goes on, and I felt that the Lord had a very serious message for this season for many of the saints. So take heart if you're one that is going through a lot of spiritual warfare just now, because help is really on the way, I assure you. And our enemy. Who is our enemy? And I've had a couple of pictures that may be helpful to you. And the first one is that I was taken back almost to what looked like a scene from the trenches, in World War I, when actually the soldiers on both sides were buried in the trenches and couldn't necessarily see the faces of their enemy. And of course, what the Lord was showing me was, remember, that they didn't know the true nature of their enemy. They simply were following orders. It was very obvious that there were much higher level principalities and powers trying to cause the maximum amount of death and destruction possible. And then the Lord reminded me, I'm sure you must know about this, what happened one of the Christmas sessions when everybody was embedded in the trenches and both sides started to sing Silent Night. And suddenly, on the German side, on the British side, they got up and they were singing and wishing each other a happy Christmas. And they certainly realised who their enemy wasn't. I believe that they were very severely punished and rebuked for it. But it does go to show, doesn't it? It's like it's back there in Ephesians in chapter 6. We're not fighting against people made of flesh and blood, but against the evil rulers and authorities of the unseen world, against those mighty powers of darkness who rule this world, and against wicked spirits in the heavenly realms. And I'm sure you all realise that. And it's a bit hard at times, isn't it, to know who the enemy is, and more importantly, who the enemy isn't. And the Lord did warn me, by the way, everybody, that there would be some shocks and surprises when we discovered that what we thought maybe was going on wasn't actually the reality. Then the second scene came, and I saw what looked like two opposing soldiers. And have you ever seen these films where you have the commandos and the spies, and they go out at night and they're wearing dark clothes and they've blacked out all of their faces, and all you can see is the whites of their eyes. And I saw that, and these two suddenly met from opposing sides and were staring one another out. And I thought, this is really, really odd. And it's speaking, isn't it, of an intimidation. And I'm sure you must have seen how it is. Imagine there's going to be a big boxing match and it's for the World Championship. And before the fight starts, they bring out the two boxers and they stare at each other. They stare face to face. And of course, what they're trying to do is intimidate the other one. They're trying to see into the very soul of the other one. They're trying to identify any vulnerability that could be there, that could be to their advantage later on. And we're going to be face to face with an enemy who is doing just that. I love this one small scripture. It's in the book of Job. It's chapter 16 and verse 9, if you want to look it up. And at that point in time, Job thinks, because he doesn't know that he's being tested, Job thinks that God hates him, and he complains, he says, God is absolutely penetrating me with his gaze. And of course, God is not his enemy. But just to say to those people who feel that they are really being intimidated at the moment and are not so sure that God is still on their side. Be reassured, he is, but quite a few of us are going through some major tests, but all will be revealed at some point. I do assure you, because I know that is the nature of our God. So then you are going to see the true nature of your enemy, but you are also going to be seeing in a deeper and more profound way the nature of a holy God who keeps covenant with you no matter what the situation actually is. And you might remember I filmed it in a previous video. If you want to go back, by all means do and look at it, where I'd had a vision. It appeared to me that it was on the northern borders before the worst of the bother had really started in the north. And it seemed to me it was where the borders of Lebanon and Syria and Israel came together. And I could see what appeared to be a massive warfare going on in heaven. But what was odd when I first looked was that it was an angelic army, but it looked like they were fighting one another because both parties were dressed in white robes of light. And I thought this was absolutely strange. And then suddenly, as I was wondering about this and saying, well, God's armies very obviously are not attacking one another. They know exactly what to do, when to do it, and who's in charge of their particular angelic battalion. And suddenly, one half of them raised up swords of light, and they just took a stroke like that. And it had such an effect that I saw that the ones who had been stripped, their garments of what appeared to be light just fell almost like to the floor of second heaven. I never saw such a thing before, but I imagine we're going to be seeing a lot more than we've previously seen. And I realized, in fact, that they had not been God's angels. They had been trying to portray themselves as angels of light, and they were not. You can check if you want. It's in the Bible. It's 2 Corinthians, isn't it? And where it says 2 Corinthians 11 and verse 14, it says, Satan masquerades as an angel of light. Because I always question the Lord, if I receive something new. And I said, well, is this biblical, Lord, what I'm saying? He said, yes, Satan can masquerade for a time, at least, as an angel of light. And if he can, certainly those who have chosen to be under his command also can masquerade in as angels of light as well. So there you go. And so we are going to be having some encounters. Now, don't be misled by it. It may seem a bit scary at first to think, oh my goodness, do I really want to meet my enemy face to face? Because yes, because God is going to help you, and he's going to help you stand in his authority. So I don't know whether you will look the same way now at a boxing match, but just think of those two guys, eyeball to eyeball. And that's what it's going to feel like for a while. There's not going to be any more trench warfare or cat and mouse games. It seems like now more things are coming out into the open. And I wanted to look at the very positive side of face-to-face, because the Bible has a lot to say about face-to-face. And if you look in the book of Exodus, I love Moses. He's one of the characters I would really love to speak to when I get to heaven. There's a big list of them, but he's high on the list. There'll probably be a queue by then, I should think. And in Exodus, chapter 33 and verse 11, you can check it, and you will hear there that God is saying he speaks to Moses face to face as a man speaks with his friend. All right? And that speaking of a huge level of intimacy that has been shared by very few of the saints of God, but maybe it's where we need to be aiming as well. But it speaks of an intimacy, a confidence where they are sure of one another, and Moses comes out there as really number one in Israel at that point in time. But one thing, if we go a bit further, we know Exodus 33 verse 20, because of that intimate relationship with the Lord, Moses says, show me your glory, show me your glorious presence. He really wants to see that. And God says, I wouldn't normally do this because no man, no woman can see my face and live, but because you are my friend, I will do this thing for you. And as you realize that God arranges it, that Moses is hidden in the cleft of the rock, and then he is able to see, if you like, the back of God, because he can't see his face, because that holiness, that level of glory would actually kill him. And I believe what we are going to be we're going to have it revealed to us in a deeper way. I'm not saying anybody listening to this video doesn't know anything about this before. We are going to discover more in our generation when we are face to face with an enemy. We're going to see an awful lot more about the nature and the authority of our holy God. And that's what happens, you see, that actually it's the nature. When Moses dares to look as far as God will allow him, he understands the nature and the character of God. He can't see anymore. It would kill him. And just look, this is a Living Bible, by the way, for a change. Exodus 34, verse 5. The Lord came down in a pillar of cloud and called out his own name, the Lord, as Moses stood there in his presence. And he passed in front of Moses and said, I am the Lord, the merciful and gracious God, slow to anger, rich in unfailing love and faithfulness. I show this unfailing love to many thousands by forgiving every kind of sin and rebellion. Even so, I do not leave sin unpunished, but I punish the children for the sins of their parents to the third and fourth generation. So if you like, the glory of the Lord is the name of the Lord and the nature of the Lord. And I feel like just as we begin to see our enemy face to face, the Lord is also going to allow us a deeper glimpse of his glory, his holy nature, so that will equip us to deal with what is happening in heavenly places, what is happening in the world in this season. And I want to finish off, please, with this. In 1 Corinthians 13, verse 12, it's one of my very favourite scriptures in the Bible. We see right now in a mirror darkly. We only see a pale reflection, but we will one day see face to face. So on the one hand, you have the Lord saying, you'll see your enemy. It may come actually as a relief when you actually see who your enemy really is and who he isn't, which can be more important as well, of course, or you can get into the wrong battle with flesh and blood. And on the other hand, I do believe that the Lord is asking us to spend more time in his presence, and that he will give us a deeper understanding and intimacy of him. Not that direct face-to-face as yet, but it is coming, a deeper knowledge, a deeper intimacy, that we too would be called his friends. And I pray for everybody listening to this video that will be your experience. If you're in the middle of the battle, know that it could be just a test. It probably is just a test. But that God will remove the attacks when he thinks that this time is finished, and you will be brought out with a deeper level of who he is and a deeper understanding of who you are, coming more and more to that place of a face-to-face with a holy God. One day we will see, and the veils, the mirrors will be removed. So take heart, be encouraged, and most of all, be very, very blessed, everyone. Bye-bye.